exact moment I decided to throw away my perfect life. It was 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I was staring at spreadsheets in my corner office at Goldman Sachs, my untouched dinner growing cold beside me. Another overpriced salad from the place downstairs. The same place I'd eaten at for the past 5 years. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Big news. Opening our 15th location next month. When will you finally join the family business? Time to stop playing with numbers and learn about real success. I looked at the photo he'd attached, him and my brother Anthony standing proudly in front of their newest Taste of Naples restaurant location. The same posed shot, the same forced smiles, the same mediocre Italian food that had somehow built my family's restaurant empire. Instead of responding, I took a bite of my cold salad and grimaced. Even bad Italian food would be better than this. My name is Sophia Russo, and I was living every Italian-American family's dream. Senior investment banker at Goldman Sachs at 28, making 7 figures a year, with a corner office overlooking Manhattan. My father should have been proud. Instead, all he saw was that I wasn't part of Russo Restaurants, the chain of Italian restaurants that had been our family's pride for 3 generations. Banking is for people who can't create anything real, he'd say at every family dinner. Anyone can move money around. It takes real skill to build a restaurant empire. What he never understood was that I did know about food. Real food, not the mass-produced pasta and sauce that made our family rich. Every vacation day I had, I spent traveling, eating at tiny local restaurants, learning about authentic cuisine. My apartment was filled with cookbooks, not finance textbooks, and every night I dreamed about cooking, not banking. But you don't walk away from Goldman Sachs, and you definitely don't walk away from it to start a food truck. At least, that's what everyone told me. That night, something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the cold salad, maybe it was my father's text, or maybe it was just time. I opened my laptop and started writing my resignation letter. The next morning, I walked into my boss's office before the markets opened. "You're what?" Jake stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "Sophia, you're on track for partner. 2 more years tops." I placed my resignation letter on his desk. "I'm opening a food truck." He started laughing, then stopped when he saw my face. "You're serious? You want to leave Goldman Sachs to sell hot dogs?" Not hot dogs, real Italian food. The kind my grandmother used to make before my father turned our family recipes into frozen pasta sauce. Jake leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his graying hair. "Look, if this is about money, it's not about money." I cut him off. "It's about creating something real." As I walked out of his office, my phone started buzzing. News travels fast on Wall Street, and by the time I reached my apartment, my father was already calling. "Have you lost your mind?" His voice boomed through the speaker. "I just got a call from Arthur Goldman himself. A food truck? You're throwing your life away." I let him rant, walking into my kitchen where my grandmother's handwritten recipe book sat on the counter. I'd spent years collecting her recipes, testing them in secret, perfecting them while my family thought I was working late at the office. "Are you even listening to me?" my father demanded. "Yes, Papa, I hear you. But for once, I need you to hear me." I opened the recipe book to her signature dish, pasta alla nonna, made with a sauce that took 3 days to prepare. I'm not throwing my life away. I'm choosing my own path. By becoming a street vendor? Your brother runs 5 restaurants by himself. We have 15 locations. We're opening 3 more this year. That's success. No, That's mass production. When was the last time you actually cooked anything, Papa? When was the last time you made Nana's recipes the way she taught us? Silence. Then, times change. You can't make money cooking one pot of sauce at a time. Watch me. I hung up and opened my laptop. 5 years at Goldman had taught me more than just finance. I knew how to plan, how to analyze markets, how to build something from nothing. I'd helped launch million-dollar companies with less planning than I was putting into my food truck. First step, I emptied my savings account. $200,000, enough to buy a top-of-the-line food truck and have operating capital for a year. Next, I pulled up the business plan I'd been working on in secret for months. Nana's Kitchen. Authentic Italian street food, made fresh daily, using recipes that hadn't been changed for mass production. My phone kept ringing. My brother Anthony, my mother, my aunts and uncles. Everyone had an opinion about my mental breakdown. I ignored them all and started making calls of my own. By sunset, I'd found the perfect truck, a barely used kitchen on wheels that I could customize. By midnight, I'd secured all the necessary permits and licenses, and by dawn, I'd mapped out every food truck location in Manhattan, analyzing foot traffic patterns, lunch crowds, and competition. 1 week later, I stood in front of my shiny new food truck, now painted in deep red with Nana's Kitchen written in gold script. Inside was a fully equipped kitchen, better than what most restaurants had. My grandmother's recipe book sat on the counter, ready to guide me. "You're really doing this?" I turned to find my mother standing there, looking worried. She was holding a container of what smelled like my father's mass-produced marinara sauce. "I thought you might need this," she said, holding out the container. "For emergencies." I shook my head. "No emergencies, Mama. Only real food." I opened my grandmother's recipe book. Remember how Nana used to spend 3 days making her sauce? How the whole house would smell like basil and garlic? That was before we had 15 restaurants to run. She sighed. "Safia, your father built an empire by taking Nana's recipes and turning them into fast food." I started preparing for my first day, laying out fresh ingredients I had bought at dawn from local markets. He built what he wanted. Now it's my turn. She left without another word, taking her container of sauce with her. I watched her walk away, then turned back to my preparations. My first customers would be arriving in 2 hours. I'd love to say my first day was a tremendous success, that people lined up around the block for my authentic Italian food. The reality? I served exactly 12 customers, made $157, and had enough leftover food to feed an army. But those 12 customers, they came back the next day, and they told their friends. By the end of the first week, I had a small but loyal following. Office workers who were tired of the same chain restaurant lunches. Food enthusiasts who appreciated real Italian cuisine. People who could taste the difference between sauce that took 3 days to make and sauce that came from a factory. My father kept tabs on me through others, never visiting himself, but always asking about my little experiment. My brother Anthony drove by once, smirking when he saw me working alone in my truck. "Have fun playing chef," he called out. "When you're ready to admit this was a mistake, your office at Russo Restaurants is waiting." I ignored them all and focused on my food. Every morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. to start preparing. Every ingredient was fresh, every dish made to order. My customers didn't just get food. They got stories about the recipes, about my grandmother, about real Italian cooking. 3 months in, something unexpected happened. A food blogger discovered me. Her review went viral. Forget everything you know about Italian food trucks. Forget everything you know about Italian restaurants. Nana's Kitchen is serving the most authentic Italian food in New York, and they're doing it from a truck. The next day, the line stretched around the block. I sold out by 1 p.m. Then came the write-up in the New York Times food section. Then Eater. Then Bon Appetit. Suddenly, my little experiment wasn't so little anymore. I needed help. I hired 2 assistants, then 4. I added a second truck, then a third, each one serving the same authentic recipes, made fresh every day. 1 year after leaving Goldman Sachs, I had a fleet of 5 trucks and a central kitchen where we prepared our sauces and fresh pasta. My revenue was approaching $2 million annually, small compared to Russo restaurants, but every dollar earned without compromising quality. I was working harder than I ever had at Goldman, putting in 16-hour days, but for the first time in my life, I was creating something real, something that would have made my grandmother proud. Then came the day that changed everything. I was working in one of my trucks when I overheard 2 customers talking about Russo restaurants, about how the quality had gone down, about how the newest locations were struggling, about rumors of financial troubles. That night, I did what any good investment banker would do. I started digging. What I found confirmed the rumors. Russo Restaurants was expanding too fast, taking on too much debt. Their mass-produced approach was failing as customers demanded better quality. Their once mighty empire was crumbling. My father didn't know it yet, but his dream of 15 locations was about to become a nightmare. And I had a decision to make. I could watch my family's legacy crumble, or I could save it, on my terms. What I did next would change not just my family's restaurant empire, but the entire way we thought about food, family, and success. But first, I had a sauce to prepare. After all, the best revenge, like the best sauce, takes time to develop. And I had all the time in the world. The numbers didn't lie. Russo Restaurants was in serious trouble. Sitting in my small office above our central kitchen, surrounded by the aroma of slowly simmering sauce, I reviewed the financial reports I'd gathered. The empire my father had built was drowning in debt, bleeding customers, and running out of time. 5 new locations opened in the past year, each one performing worse than the last. Food costs skyrocketing because of their bulk buying contracts, customer satisfaction scores plummeting, and worst of all, a $50 million loan coming due in 6 months that they couldn't possibly pay. My phone buzzed. A text from Anthony. "Hey sis, how's the food truck life? Still playing chef?" I looked at the expansion plans spread across my desk, not just plans for more trucks, but for something bigger. Something that would change everything. Actually, I typed back, "I'm thinking about expanding. Want to get coffee?" We met at a small Italian cafe, not one of our family's restaurants. Anthony showed up in his designer suit, reeking of expensive cologne and desperation. He didn't know I could smell the fear on him. So, he smirked, stirring his cappuccino, finally ready to admit this food truck thing was a phase. "Your office is still empty." I took a sip of my espresso, properly made, unlike the automated machines in his restaurants. Actually, I want to talk about Russo Restaurants, specifically about the Bronx location's 42% drop in revenue last quarter. His cup clattered against the saucer. "How did you?" Or the 3 health code violations at the Brooklyn location? Or maybe the $50 million loan that's coming due? I pulled out a folder. "I may have left Wall Street, Anthony, but I didn't forget how to read financial statements. You've been spying on us? Public records, brother. Amazing what you can find when you know where to look. I leaned forward. You're in trouble. Big trouble. He deflated slightly, his arrogance cracking. Papa says we can handle it. We just need to cut costs, maybe close a few locations. You need $50 million in 6 months, and your credit is maxed out. Cost cutting won't save you. I opened the folder, sliding over a proposal I'd spent weeks preparing. But I can. You? He laughed, but it sounded hollow. With what? Food truck money. With Nana's legacy fund. His laughter stopped. Never heard of it. You wouldn't have. I created it 3 months ago, using my Goldman Sachs connections. It's a private investment firm specializing in restaurant turnarounds. I watched his face as understanding slowly dawned. We have $2 billion in capital, and we're very interested in authentic Italian restaurants. Anthony's hands trembled slightly as he picked up the proposal. $2 billion. That's impossible. You've been running food trucks. I've been running food trucks, making connections, and building a reputation for quality food. Meanwhile, I've also been raising capital, analyzing failing restaurants, and preparing for this moment. I pulled out another document. This is a preliminary offer. We'll assume the debt, inject fresh capital, and restructure operations. Papa will never agree. He'd rather go bankrupt than give up control. Then you go bankrupt, and we'll buy the assets at auction. I stood up, leaving the documents on the table. You have 48 hours to discuss this with him. After that, we start buying up your debt on the secondary market. And trust me, Goldman Sachs remembers me very well. I left him sitting there, staring at the numbers that spelled the end of his world or the beginning of a new one. That evening, my mother showed up at my central kitchen. I was in the middle of teaching new staff how to properly make Nana's sauce, just as she had taught me years ago. Your brother told us, she said quietly, watching me stir the sauce, about your investment firm, about the offer. I added a pinch of fresh basil to the pot. And your father is upset. Of course he is. His daughter who threw her life away now has the power to save or destroy his legacy. I handed her a spoon. Taste. She dipped the spoon in the sauce, and for a moment, I saw tears in her eyes. It tastes just like Mama used to make. That's because I make it exactly the way she taught us. Before Papa decided it was too expensive, too time-consuming to do it right, I turned down the heat, letting the sauce simmer. Every truck, every batch, every single day. We do it right. He's not a bad man, Sofia. He just wanted to build something big. I know, Mama, but he built it by sacrificing what made our food special. I wiped my hands on my apron. Now I'm offering to help him fix it. But it has to be my way. She nodded slowly. He wants to meet. Tomorrow night at the original restaurant. The original Russo restaurant, where it all began 40 years ago. Now a tired location in Little Italy, its once bright sign faded, its tables half empty most nights. I hadn't been there since leaving Goldman Sachs. Walking in the next evening felt like stepping back in time. The same red checkered tablecloths, the same pictures of Italy on the walls, the same menu that hadn't changed in decades. But now I could see what customers saw. A relic, not a destination. My father sat in his usual corner booth, an empty plate of pasta in front of him. He didn't stand when I approached. Investment firms. He spat the words like they tasted bad. Billions of dollars. This is how you respect our family's heritage. I slid into the booth across from him. I respect our heritage by making food the way Nana taught us. When was the last time you tasted your own sauce, Papa? Really tasted it? He pushed the plate away. We serve thousands of people every day. You can't make sauce 3 days at a time for that many people. Actually, you can. My central kitchen does it every day. Smaller batches, better ingredients, real cooking. I pulled out my proposal, and we can do it for all your restaurants. But things have to change. Change. You want to destroy everything I built. No, I want to save it. But not just the restaurants. I want to save what made us special. I opened my grandmother's recipe book, which I'd brought with me. Remember this? Remember how people used to line up around the block just to taste Nama's cooking? His eyes softened slightly at the sight of his mother's handwriting. That was different. Times were simpler. People still want real food, Papa. They're tired of mass-produced meals and artificial flavors. Look at my trucks. Lines every day, selling out by lunch. And we charge more than your restaurants because people will pay for quality. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the recipe book. The loan, he finally said, comes due in 6 months. You've tried every bank in the city. No one will refinance. I laid out the numbers. You're losing money on every new location. Food costs are up 60% because your suppliers know you can't negotiate. And your best customers are finding better options. Like food trucks, he asked bitterly. Like anywhere that still cares about quality. I pushed the proposal closer. I can save Russo restaurants. Keep the name, keep the legacy, but return to what made us great. Real Italian food, cooked with care. And I suppose you'll want to run everything. Yes. No point sugarcoating it. My firm will have controlling interest. You'll retain a significant stake, but operational decisions will be mine. He stood up abruptly, his face flushed. Never. I'll find another way. There is no other way, Papa. You have 6 months until the loan comes due. 5 months until suppliers start demanding cash on delivery. 4 months until you have to start closing locations. I stood too, matching his stance. I'm not asking for your permission. I'm offering you a choice. A choice? He laughed harshly. Between selling my life's work to my ungrateful daughter or going bankrupt. No. A choice between admitting you need help or watching everything you built get sold off piece by piece. I gathered my things. You have until Monday to decide. After that, we start buying your debt. I walked out of the restaurant, leaving him standing there among the empty tables and faded memories. Outside, one of my food trucks was parked nearby, the evening shift, serving dinner to a long line of customers. The next few days were silent. No calls from my father. No texts from Anthony. But I knew they were running the numbers. Realizing what I already knew, they had no choice. On Monday morning, my phone rang. The board wants to meet, Anthony said, his voice tight, to discuss your proposal. The meeting was set for Wednesday at their corporate headquarters, a fancy office building that had seemed so impressive when I was young. Now it just looked like another monument to prioritizing size over substance. I arrived early, dressed in chef's whites instead of a business suit. Let them see who I really was, not who they wanted me to be. The boardroom was full. My father, Anthony, the other executives who had helped build and nearly destroy our family's legacy. They all watched as I set up my presentation. But first, I had servers bring in lunch. Dishes from my food trucks, made fresh that morning. Before we discussed numbers, I said, I want you to taste something. The sauce was made exactly how Nana taught us. 3 days, fresh ingredients, no shortcuts. They ate in silence. I saw the recognition in their eyes, the memory of what our food used to taste like before mass production and cost-cutting destroyed it. My father put down his fork, wiped his mouth, and looked at me. In his eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before: respect. Now, I said, pulling up the first slide of my presentation, let's talk about how we save Russo restaurants. What happened next would change not just our family's business, but the entire way America thought about Italian food. But that's not where the story ends. Because sometimes saving something means completely rebuilding it. And I was just getting started. The transformation of Russo restaurants began at 4 a.m. on a Monday morning, 3 weeks after the board meeting. I stood in the kitchen of our original location, surrounded by my best food truck chefs and a very skeptical kitchen staff. Today, I announced, holding up my grandmother's recipe book, we learned to cook again. The executive chef, who'd been running this kitchen for 20 years, crossed his arms. We know how to cook. No, I corrected him gently. You know how to heat up pre-made sauce and boil factory pasta. Today you learn to make real Italian food. Over the next 12 hours, we made sauce the way Nana had taught me. Fresh tomatoes, not canned. Herbs picked that morning. Slow cooked, stirred by hand, tasted every hour. The kitchen staff watched, skeptical at first, then increasingly interested as the aroma filled the air. By dinner service, we had 1 batch of real sauce ready. I made an announcement to the dining room. Tonight, we're offering a special, pasta alla nonna, made from my grandmother's original recipe. Same price as our regular pasta, but limited quantity. We sold out in 2 hours. The next day, the line stretched around the block. But this was just one restaurant. We had 14 others to fix and a mountain of debt to deal with. My father, surprisingly, became my strongest ally. After that first night, after seeing customers' reactions to real food, something changed in him. He started coming to the kitchen early, watching us cook, even rolling up his sleeves to help. I had forgotten, he admitted one morning, stirring a pot of sauce, how it used to be, how Mama did it. Anthony was a harder sell. This is inefficient, he complained during a management meeting. We're spending 3 times as much on ingredients, 5 times as much on labor, and charging twice as much per dish. I cut in, sliding over the latest numbers. With full dining rooms and lines out the door. The transformation wasn't easy. We closed 3 underperforming locations, converted 2 others into training centers. I brought in my food truck teams to train restaurant staff, teaching them not just recipes, but the philosophy behind real Italian cooking. Every location got a complete makeover. Out went the checkered tablecloths and cheap wine glasses. In came elegant simplicity, open kitchens where customers could watch their food being made, wine lists curated by actual sommeliers. But the biggest change was in our central kitchen, or rather, its elimination. No more mass production, I announced 6 months into the transformation. Each restaurant makes its own sauce, its own pasta, its own everything. Fresh, daily, no shortcuts. The food critics noticed. The first review came from the New York Times. Russo Restaurants has undergone a miraculous transformation. What was once a chain of mediocre Italian restaurants has become a collection of authentic trattorias, each offering food that would make any Italian grandmother proud. Michelin stars followed. First one restaurant, then another. Our prices went up, but customers didn't complain. They were getting real food, cooked with care and passion. 1 year after taking control, we had fewer locations, but triple the revenue. The debt was paid off. Our suppliers were happy, and our staff turnover had dropped to nearly zero. Turns out people like working in kitchens that actually cook. But the real moment of triumph came during Sunday dinner at my parents' house. For the first time in years, the whole family was gathered around the table. My mother had cooked, really cooked, not just heated up pre-made food. "I have something to show you," my father said after dinner. He led me to his study, where a new frame hung on the wall next to his business awards. Inside was a food truck permit, my original one, from when I first started. "I was wrong," he said quietly, "about everything, about you." I hugged him, smelling the familiar scent of garlic and basil that now clung to his clothes just like it had clung to Nana's. "We were both right, Papa. You built something big. I just helped make it good again." 2 years after the takeover, Russo Restaurants had become Russo and Daughter, my condition for the final rebranding. We had 10 locations, each one unique, each one excellent. The waiting list for dinner reservations was months long. My food trucks? Still running, still popular. I kept them as our research and development kitchens, testing new recipes, training new chefs, keeping us connected to the streets where real food culture lags. Anthony finally came around when he realized that quality meant both better profits and more respect in the food world. He now runs our chef training program, teaching new cooks the difference between making food and making memories. Last month, a young chef from our newest location asked me why we spend so much time and money doing things the hard way. I took her into the kitchen, showed her how to stir the sauce, just like Nana taught me. "Feel that?" I asked as she stirred. "That's not just sauce. That's tradition. That's family. That's love." She nodded, understanding, filling her eyes as the aroma of slowly simmered tomatoes and fresh herbs surrounded us. Later that evening, I found my father in the same kitchen, teaching another young chef how to make pasta by hand. His sleeves were rolled up, flour dusting his once immaculate suit. "You know," he said when he saw me, "I spent 30 years trying to make this business bigger. You spent 2 years making it better." I picked up a handful of flour, felt its texture, just like Nana taught me. "Why not both?" He smiled, really smiled, the way he used to when I was little and helped him in the kitchen. Why not both indeed? We're expanding again, but differently this time. Each new location has to earn its right to exist by maintaining our standards. No shortcuts, no compromises, no mass production. Every sauce made fresh, every pasta rolled by hand, every dish cooked with pride. The investment firm that started it all, still going strong, still transforming restaurants, still proving that quality and profit can coexist. But that's not what I'm most proud of. Last week, I found my grandmother's recipe book in the kitchen of our original location. It was open to her sauce recipe, the pages stained with tomato and oil, the way a well-used cookbook should be. But it wasn't just her handwriting anymore. There were notes in the margins from our chefs, little tweaks and observations, the recipe evolving while staying true to its roots. That's when I knew we'd succeeded, not because of the awards or the profits or the waiting lists, but because we'd created something my grandmother would have been proud of. My father joined me in the kitchen that evening, putting on an apron like he does every day now. "Ready to make the sauce?" he asked. I smiled, reaching for the tomatoes. "Always, Papa, always." The food trucks still park outside our restaurants sometimes, a reminder of where this revolution started. And every morning, when I smell the sauce starting to simmer, I think about that scared girl who left Wall Street with a dream of doing food right. Turns out you can go home again. You just have to be willing to cook up some changes along the way. Last night, a food critic asked me if I ever regret leaving Wall Street. I led her into our kitchen, showed her the sauce bubbling in huge pots, the pasta being rolled by hand, the chefs working with pride and passion. Banking taught me about numbers, I told her. But this taught me about value. And those are very different things. She took another bite of her pasta, closed her eyes in bliss, and nodded. She understood. Because in the end, success